Hello and welcome into the RotoWire Fantasy Soccer Podcast brought to you by SoRare. I'm Andrew Laird, Senior Soccer Editor of RotoWire, joined on this Friday, October 1st. Oh, it's October. By Jordan Cooper and Ryan Belongia to talk about Saturday's Premier League slate. We are out of the Champions League for a little bit. Ryan had some success this week, so he might be extra chipper today. This slate sure doesn't feel like a Champions League slate, though. Jordan, it feels like it's a little bit like one you like. Or do you even like these anymore, actually, now that I've said that?
No, why wouldn't I? I like any at the past year with those split slates, 3 games. I'm fine with 4 games at the same time. I don't care who's playing. I'm fine with it.
How do you feel? I was thinking of you earlier this week because as a lot of people who watch this podcast or listen to this podcast or watch these videos know that you started playing DraftKings because of Major League Soccer. And MLS was like notorious for their 6-hour staggered starts now. This past Saturday, there were 6 classic MLS slates, no more than 3 games each. So there was like a classic slate at a 2 game at 7, a 3 game at 7:30, a 2 game at 8, a 2 game at 8:30, and I think there was like a showdown at 9 and 9:30. Is that better?
No, I mean, I haven't played MLS DFS in probably 3 or 4 years. No, it's not better because essentially you're still doing the same exact thing depending on what slate that you're playing, and the prize pools aren't that big anyway. And
now they're split.
Cash, you're probably playing against other sharp players, so no, that's not enticing me back.
I was talking to Luis about it. I have previously referred to him as, or not me, I didn't come up with it. I forget who did come up with it, but they called him the Cal Ripken of daily fantasy soccer because he'll play every slate. And he was like, I actually would just rather the staggered starts because I have to be here every 30 minutes now anyway. So at least give me like one where I can get a bigger prize pool and just play that. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Major League Soccer. Premier League slate, 4 games, a little smaller than we've been getting. Do we think it's just a jam Chelsea slate?
No, definitely not. I mean, all these we have all home favorites. So the biggest favorite is Chelsea minus 248, which is way down from the open.
Mm-hmm.
Minus 248 at home to Southampton, 2.5 total. Then we have Wolves minus 147 at home to Newcastle, 2.5 total. Leeds minus 121 at home to Watford, 2.75 total. And then Burnley minus 107 home favorite to Norwich City, 1.5 total. With the prices of the Chelsea guys, I think we're basically the ownership is most likely going to be Lukaku, it's going to be the fullbacks, the wingbacks, whoever starts there, and that's about it. But are you playing Lukaku in cash?
No.
I think the biggest question that I have on this slate, and I think Ryan could chime in on this, even because it's a tournament question as well. With the fact that Leeds typically does not have a majority set piece taker, we've seen Stuart Dallas taking set pieces. We've seen Calvin Phillips is there. Do you think that Raphinha is worth 10-7 anymore? Now, I'm not arguing necessarily from a floor perspective. I think he does have a high floor, but his goal scoring odds, I mean, we take a look at the cheat sheet, the RotoWire soccer cheat sheet, which you could get if you're a RotoWire subscriber. So sign up, rotowire.com/soccer trial. Like Raphinha's odds to score are plus 260. Like, other than the fact that Watford is the underdog in this matchup, what's the huge difference between Raphinha and Ismail Sarr now? Like, if you're willing to play Raphinha at 10-7, why wouldn't you play Sarr at 9-3?
Yeah. Good question. I was thinking about that too when I was going through the odds. Actually, one of the first things I noticed were those Raphinha odds. It feels like they should be a little bit better. I don't know. I don't know how they necessarily come up with those, but I don't know. He's been scoring goals, and this matchup against Watford, Leeds should be on top for most of the match. As far as like him versus Sarr, I don't know. I think I'd just try to find the 1400 just based on the matchup. And I mean, he has, half the set pieces too, and probably the direct free kicks for shooting opportunities. So I think there's enough there where I'm going to still go with Raphinha. I mean, he's been great this season. His floor is not like all tied to set pieces either. I don't love that he went 69 minutes last week. I haven't really seen what that's about. I mean, he went 67 the week before that because he picked up that slight injury, I think, but it's always been 90. I don't know what the sub was about, but yeah, I think I'm going to find.
Do you see my concern at least?
Yes, I
you're
absolutely.
paying a premium price for someone that has a high floor, but I mean, if you compare the goal scoring odds to Lukaku, I mean, obviously Lukaku could only really get there with a goal or two.
Right. No,
it's just that like if Raphinha plays 70 minutes and takes 3 corners, like what tell me what the difference between him and Sarr or him and hell, even Dwight McNeil at 8,300. Burnley are favored in this match. Like, is there that dramatic of a difference where it should be 1, 2, 3,000 in salary?
No. I absolutely can see your concern. I go the other way. Can go the other way on Raphinha too. Like the fact that he's the most expensive, you can get these other options like you've talked about that are similar and cheaper. And if Raphinha is like any risk of getting subbed, I don't think you need to pay 10-7 for him. I understand it. The matchup pushes it over the edge for me. Like if I had to make a choice, but there are options if you don't want to play him, and you can definitely use the salary you save. So I think being concerned is valid.
I think comparing Raphinha to Lukaku, I would side with Raphinha, right? I mean, if that was the only slot for your lineup where it's like, I'm building a cash lineup, do I play Lukaku or Raphinha? I play Raphinha. My question is, do you play an expensive forward to begin with? I mean, we have Adama Traore if he starts, 9,900. Like what? I'm looking at guys like Traore, Raphinha, Sarr, like as the similar archetype of player. Wolves are favored. Traore has as high of a floor as Raphinha does without any set pieces. So I think at least coming into this, like in the past, we'd go, just plug in Raphinha and then build your lineup. Like, I think he's at a price in the context of this slate that he may still end up being in my cash lineup, but it's something that I'm not just plugging and playing anymore.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You're right. He's not a lock like anymore in terms of the context of this slate with the price and the other options. I agree.
Jordan telling me to not play the set piece taker for somebody who doesn't have any set pieces, or possibly Lukaku. And I know you said you would take Raphinha over Lukaku straight up in cash. It's a wild world. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but it's weird for me to say, but I think my favorite pay up, quote unquote, option at forward on the slate is Dwight McNeil at 8,300. It seems weird for me to say that, but it's not going to be very often where Burnley are favored in many matches and Norwich are the worst team in the league. If you're going to play Dwight McNeil any slate, it's at home against Norwich. So why not take advantage of it now as opposed to when he's 7,000 to 7,500 as a plus 400 underdog? I feel so much more comfortable. I feel more comfortable in that range. The problem at forward is not that we can't find forwards to play, is that I don't even think the Dinky Do is an option in cash because I just don't think there are high-priced midfielders to play anyway. I think I'm more likely. That's why it may be that I have Raphinha in my lineup, because I'd rather allocate the salary to the forward slot and the defender slot and not the midfield slot. I think there are cheap midfielders that are worth playing. And there are some midfielders that are almost overpriced that it's like, yeah, you can play them, but I'd rather devote them to the forward slot. But like in cash, I mean, I think that what you're going to see in cash, assuming the projected 11s that we have are out, I think we're going to see a lot of Raphinha, McNeil, Rajishka, some type of combination of that, whether you pay up for Raphinha or whether, you go up and down, you go Raphinha, Rajishka, or you go Raphinha, McNeil, or McNeil, Rajishka, depending on your construction. But to me, those are the clear, that's the clear cash construction.
Do you think Sar is like a lot behind them ownership wise?
I think so. I mean, they're an underdog.
Yeah, I mean, it's at Leeds. I don't know if that necessarily pushes enough people off.
Right. I think there are at forward. There are several guys that I love for GPPs. We'll get into that in a little bit, but at the midfield spot, are you thrilled about paying? I mean, I don't even if Mount's in, I'm not. Do I want to pay 8,500 for him? I mean, even if he is in for Chelsea, with you can't guarantee any set pieces. You can't even guarantee he's going to go 90. I mean, you're not going to play Ward-Prowse as the biggest underdog on the slate. Jack Harrison is laughably overpriced, even if he even starts. It's weird to say, but the highest priced midfielder that I'm willing to play, and even then, I'm like iffy, is Matinho at 6,400.
Yeah, so a couple of things there. The right above Matinho, Mateus Click at 6,800 is like beyond laughable. But when I saw the slate, and I was like, okay, Ward-Prowse against Chelsea, not a great matchup. Trying to think, I hadn't seen the salary yet, so I was like, what would I pay to play him? And he's had some good games against good teams. I don't think he's a stay away just because of matchup. But then I saw that price and I was like, okay, that you just made the decision for me. There's no way you pay that. I thought even 6,700 might be too much. 87 is just absurd.
What about Westwood at 5,800?
I was gonna say, you're gonna play Matinho and Westwood?
Why not? Seems like that type of slate. They're both favored. Why not?
Man, I mean, I want to hear your opinion on it too, Andrew, but it actually seems okay. I didn't think of it until now. It's not many times, and I agree with what you guys said about forward, that Dwight McNeil is the best forward on the slate for cash games. I agree there. The price is good. The matchup's great. And Westwood's been great this year. I don't want to pay up for any of those other guys. Can't believe Ward-Prowse is that high. I think you could make a case for Stuart Dallas if he's splitting sets with Raphinha, and he even has some open play value too.
For sure.
But yeah, Westwood's game log looks pretty good from a cash perspective.
Yeah, writing my article, I was just because I filled in for you, Ryan, this week. And I was like, that. I have to be missing something if I'm writing about João Matinho and Ashley Westwood. And I was like, I don't see it though.
The third guy out of that trio. The third guy is Tom Cleverley at 4,500.
Yeah, I'm just hoping he doesn't play. But I was thinking that with how bad midfield is, and the fact that Westwood is not overpriced and he's actually been pretty good, I think that may actually reduce McNeil's ownership a little bit and just pushes more to Raphinha. I think people who are going to play McNeil and Rashishka, or McNeil Sar, or whatever it is, you can, I feel like not that Westwood's a hedge against McNeil, but if you go in and you're I want multiple Burnley pieces, you're usually not feeling great about your lineup when one of them could just turn into Raphinha. So that's why I think Raphinha will be a little more popular than maybe he should be, at that price, and the fact that he's sharing sets. But I am really hoping that Ryan's boy Billy Gilmore starts so that I don't have to play Westwood and Matinho. That's all.
Are you that excited of playing Billy Gilmore though?
It's a good point.
Do we think Gilmore would have sets if he played?
I mean, they've got a bunch of guys. Norman took some last week. There's no guarantee Rashishka starts even. I mean, I assume he does, but that Norwich lineup is weird, and nobody's playing 90, but maybe that's why I should just play Matinho. Ugh.
A guy I'm interested in cash games that doesn't have set pieces, if he starts, is Daniel James at 4,900. I think for his price for that game environment is very good. Just understand he's likely not going to go 90 if he does play. But I think he does have enough open play value at sub 5K that I consider him an option. But I mean, I'd still probably play cleverly over him.
Yeah, James, man, coming off at halftime last week with Harrison back, that seems pretty risky, Jordan. I know you've been taking more risks in cash lately for a little bit of upside. James had 4 accurate passes last week. Not that matters.
How many inaccurate passes though?
Yeah, okay. He's done nothing since coming to Leeds. It's kind of weird. You thought it would be a great spot for him the way Leeds play. I like taking some shots there for tournaments. Cash, I don't know. It seems like
Brian, Raphinha is plus 260 anytime goal scoring odds. Daniel James plus 220.
That can't be accurate, right? I mean, it can't be.
Well, that's what it says here on the cheat sheet.
Yeah, I know. So just one other thing I wanted to ask you guys. Why do you think Ward Prowse is 8,700? Because but seriously, because, DraftKings, I feel like they get spots right more often than not. When you see weird prices, it usually ends up that they were right about it. I don't know how they came up with this, though. I mean, I know Chelsea have given up more fantasy points than we thought they would in certain spots, but yeah, that's just crazy.
A lot of times, just since I know a little bit that goes behind the curtain, a lot of times previous ownership reflects in the price. So it's like like we see in NFL, if a guy at a certain price in week whatever gets a ton of ownership, like the price bump the next week will be higher, even though like the situation is obviously different. Like the guy that he replaced is back, and it's a matchup, and they're a 10-point underdog, and it still doesn't matter. So it's kind of weird to say when it comes to DraftKings, when it comes to their soccer prices, I assume incompetence before any type of real reason.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. So we've seen in the past that, that the soccer operations people may not know enough about the sport that, we get, Danny Alves at minimum price when he comes back. And like, no one seemed to realize why they I think it's more that, the algorithm knows. It's like, no, I think just someone screwed up.
Okay. Makes sense.
At defender, do we just plug in one of the Chelsea fullbacks, probably Alonso and Matt Ritchie, and just call it a day?
I think so. I think it might be Chilwell or who. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is.
It doesn't matter whoever that is, right? I mean, like, I don't even care at that point.
Yep. I think that's what you do.
I think in the cheap range, just to go through, I think you can play the Watford fullbacks, Rose and Firmino. I think they're fine.
Yep.
I wouldn't mind, depending on how they line up. This is a weird, just going to throw out the name, Giannoulis for Norwich, 3,700. If he's playing as a wing back, they play with a 3-back line. I'm not sure they will. I'm just throwing it out there.
They did last time out, yeah.
Okay, so I said everyone in the middle seems like why like unless you're gonna play Ritchie with set pieces against Wolves, or Chelsea with a split set piece share from one of their fullbacks, why bother paying 5,000 for Charlie Taylor? Like, why are we paying from 4,300 for Max Aarons or something? Like, just go down in the 3K range, somewhere around there, if you needed a cheap guy for whatever reason.
I think you could even make the argument you literally go to the bottom, not even like the 3K range, like
Fabian Schär, if he's going to be in.
Yeah.
Truce to Kong.
I mean, I don't think there's that much of a difference between those guys and the ones that are 800 to 1,000 more.
Most of the guys.
But that's why but I don't think you're playing any. Like, I think it's, like you said, Ritchie and one of the Chelsea guys.
I think you're right, though. If you look under about 4,000 or whatever, there's really not much difference than just going to 2,500.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think.
Except it gives you more money to play Raphinha.
Chelsea guys are interesting. Yeah, it seems like Chilwell's going to start. But again, who knows? I don't know.
What do you think of
71 feels like a lot.
Azpilicueta if he plays as a wing back?
Yeah. It's all right. A lot of times when he plays as a wing back, he doesn't finish there because of Hudson-Odoi or whoever else. But
what do you think of Hudson-Odoi? I mean, he's midfield forward eligible.
Yeah, we didn't mention
7,300 in that slot if he plays. I mean, they're not. It's gonna be either Alonso, Chilwell, or Hudson-Odoi, right? Like these are all left-sided players, so like we're only gonna see one of those three. I'm assuming.
No. Hudson-Odoi is usually on the right.
Yeah,
he's usually on the right. Okay.
Yeah.
So if we see him, that means Azpilicueta is playing as a center back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if we see if we don't see Hudson-Odoi and you see Chalobah in, that means Azpilicueta will be playing as a wing back.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Hudson-Odoi, yeah. I think he's okay for cash too. If he starts, like we briefly mentioned Mount. I'm not sure Mount would have any sets. Again, it's tough to predict with Chelsea, but Hudson-Odoi's been taking the right-sided ones when he's played. He's only played one game in the Premier League, but when he did start against Villa, he started on the right wing where Reece James normally plays. And then they made a sub in the second half and moved, I forget who, maybe Azpilicueta there, and moved Hudson-Odoi to forward. So, I mean, he got added upside in the second half. Yeah, I like Hudson-Odoi.
I guess the problem is we assume he's going to have some set pieces, but if he had none, like, do you think he's still reasonable?
Yeah, I wouldn't love it as much, but yeah, I wouldn't love it as much. No.
All right.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's risky. That's like a big price tag, 7,300 for a wing back. You can still kind of think of him as like another defender. If you didn't have set pieces, yeah, I don't think it's like a smash spot for Chelsea. As Jordan mentioned, the odds have been coming down a little. Chelsea haven't been scoring many goals.
Right. They just keep them out. Yeah. All right. Before we jump into GPPs, do you love sports collectibles or fantasy sports? Because SoRare is blending them together to create an entirely new gaming experience. SoRare cards are officially licensed NFTs from over 180 clubs, including Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain, and Liverpool, and built on Ethereum. You truly own your collectibles, and you can use them to win rewards such as new cards or ETH. Join SoRare and connect with your favorite teams, live the game with passion, and earn weekly prizes. That's sorare.com, SORARE.com. Jordan, you said you loved some of these forwards for GPPs.
There's one team that I love more than anyone else, and it's going to be the weirdest thing. We kind of mentioned it before. The team that I love the most on this slate for GPPs is Burnley. Is that weird or does it make sense? To me, it makes sense mathematically. Okay, so I'm going to go through. If we look at our Scockers cheat sheet, okay, so we see the implied goals scored, right? So Chelsea 2.02, Wolves 1.8, Leeds 1.84, Burnley 1.65. Then we get the underdogs, which are 1.15 and below.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, Burnley is the lowest of those four, but not like dramatically lower than Leeds or Wolves. And if we take a look at the prices of Chelsea, you got Lukaku, you got Havertz, you got Werner, right? They're expensive. Take a look at Wolves. Raul Jimenez, 9K. I mean, we're talking about expensive. Leeds, Raphinha, right? Harrison, they're expensive also. Burnley, Lukaku's minus 140 to score, 10-5. Raul Jimenez, 9,000 to score, 9,000 minus 120 to score. Chris Wood, plus 105, $6,300. If Ashley Barnes starts instead of Vidra, he's 4,500 with plus 140 goal scoring odds. So I take a look at this and it's like, if I think that the winning teams on this slate put up 2 goals, right? If all the favorites just win 2-0, wouldn't it be from a price perspective? I'd rather have the Burnley goals than any of the other goals. And if you take a look at the rest of their lineup, I mean, it's cheap. If you want to, you could play McNeil, you could play Wood, you could play Westwood, you could play JBG at 4,300. The fullbacks, I mean, are a little bit overpriced, but they're in range, and you play the goal. I mean, it just seems like there's a lot more combinations of salary that I could put together with Burnley than I can with any other team. And Burnley's not the type of team that goes out and scores 4 goals, but against Norwich, maybe they do. I mean, and the substitution pattern for Burnley is, I mean, you could time your clock by it. I mean, the guys that go 90 go 90. The guys that go 70 go 70. I mean, like it's the static type of thing. It just comes down to, is it going to be Barnes or Vidra up top with Wood? And Vidra's 6,900, so he's not all that appealing, but he's still playable. So if you don't want to play the defenders or the goalkeeper, I still have no problem with the Norwich side either. I mean, Rajishka's cheap. Pukki is still cheap enough. I mean, if we take a look at their goal scoring odds, Pukki's plus 175. We have, let's see, anyone else here?
I think the biggest thing, though, about the Burnley guys is you don't need them to score 4 on this slate, most likely.
Right. Well, if they do, you win. I mean, that's fine. But Sargent is 5,500 plus 340 goal scoring odds. I just think that the totals of these games are not that far apart, but the Burnley Norwich game is just significantly cheaper. All these other games have expensive players in them. And this game, McNeil is 8,300. That's the most expensive player in this entire game. And if it goes as expected and the same amount of goals get scored, I just think you just get so much more value from playing the Burnley guys. Ryan, am I speaking crazy?
No,
but it's not appealing. Ryan, you have to agree that you like to play 4 guys from Burnley in your lineup, even on a 4-game slate in GPPs, it feels like, wow, I'm going to get like their 1 goal and a bunch of peripherals. And can I win a GPP this way rather than play like Raul Jimenez or Havertz or Werner or one of those guys and go, well, those are guys that could score like 2-3 goals in 1 game. Mm-hmm. Chris Wood, I don't know.
Yeah. First of all, Burnley, they seem like such good GPP plays. I was worried that they would even be chalky. I thought before I opened the slate, I thought Chris Wood would be 7,500. Even McNeil seems too cheap. Ashley Barnes, 4 or 5 for those goal scoring odds. I mean, this is as good of a matchup as they'll get all season. I love the Burnley guys for GPPs. I don't see how they won't be at least somewhat popular. I'm not sure that matters, though. Like you said, people will go to Chelsea and some of the more expensive forwards. So, I love Burnley. Like, this is the first time I think that I could ever remember that Chris Wood and some of these other guys are going to be like part of my core as opposed to just some one-off leverage plays here and there. Prices are way too cheap. I think you said it best.
I think the other forward, and that's too cheap for his goal scoring odds in comparison, is if he starts Daniel Podence, 5,400 plus 160 goal scoring odds. I think Wolves, if you're not going to play Chelsea, to play something like He-Chan, Podence, Jimenez, some type of combination of that. Maybe you throw in Moutinho, maybe one of the fullbacks. Like some combination of that 3 players combination of that. I think that's doable. I think the game as a whole, that's the game that I like as a whole to go over is the Leeds Watford game. The problem is that like the pieces like to play Raphinha and Sarr together and try to get in any of the other pieces. I think Josh King is the main piece in that game that you'd have at 4,800 to make the salary fit. But it's like if you like the Leeds Watford game, like you're gonna be spending a lot, and you better make sure that that's a 3-2 game, or you're probably not going to get there. But I think from a pace and style of play perspective, that's most likely to be the most open game
for sure
out of the bunch.
There's going back to the Wolves guys for a second. There's like a non-zero chance that Podence has some set pieces too.
Yeah, I think Podence would be a great play at 5,400. Yeah, he has goal upside, maybe even some set pieces, like you said. I think I would even prefer like Raul Jimenez to Lukaku, just based on price, probably similar popularity. Jimenez has been in good form since coming back, especially that last game. He looked great.
Yeah.
Ryan, I have a question for you about Chelsea.
Yeah.
In a lineup that you don't play Lukaku, are you more likely to play Werner or Havertz or Mount or whoever instead in that type of lineup, or are you more likely to fade Chelsea completely?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Obviously, I think you could do either. What I'm more likely to do, I would probably just fade Chelsea because I like some of these other guys, like in that Chelsea price range. And you spoke about the Leeds-Watford game. I think Rodrigo is a pretty good GPP play. Very encouraging to see him go 90 minutes, 2 in a row, taking shots. And he's just a good player, scores goals in different ways. And I mean, no goals on the season. You've got to think it's coming. That price seems pretty good. Yeah, I don't mind though if you're going to fade Lukaku going to those Chelsea guys. I don't know, man. Chelsea's just tough. Chelsea's just tough these days. They make subs. Those forwards don't really get many floor points. They need goals. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little bit off of Chelsea for this slate.
Because you think they'll be popular, or because you think they're going to underperform though, or just you think they'll be too popular to play them?
Like a combination of both, I think.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, they could put up a few goals here. Southampton's not great, and the prices for Timo and Havertz are okay. Lukaku, of course, could score a hat trick, but yeah, I don't know. Like the last few Chelsea games I've watched, they weren't even creating that many chances. So yeah, I think they'll still be popular. Chelsea's like the only, quote unquote elite team. Well, they are the only elite team on this slate. I like Timo Werner the most, but I think I would go elsewhere. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, my concern is I think Lukaku and the fullbacks are going to be some of the highest owned players on the slate.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. Okay. But I think it's more likely that Havertz and Werner, we're using them because they're in the projected 11, are more likely to be in those lineups than be by themselves. So, for instance, if you wanted to get leverage over the Lukaku Chilwell lineups, playing only Havertz or only Werner and hoping that Lukaku doesn't score, Chelsea doesn't keep a clean sheet, Chilwell's sitting there with like 8 points or something that you don't need, and it's a 1-1 game, and Havertz and Werner have the goal. Yeah. Right, have 15 points is sitting there, and it busts all the other lineups because it's more likely that I don't think Havertz and Werner will be that owned. Maybe 15% each. Like Lukaku will be 40 plus, Chilwell or Alonso will be 40 plus, Havertz and Werner will be 15 each, and I think they're more likely to appear in lineups that already have Lukaku and Chilwell. Like people will play Chilwell, one of Havertz or Werner, and Lukaku. So, like, by playing Lukaku by himself, seems like, obviously why just try to get a goal elsewhere. Playing the defenders by themselves are still fine because now you're just hoping that Chelsea really doesn't score through Lukaku at all. You get an assist, it's Callum Hudson-Odoi goal, it's a Kovacic, something else. And you can still, with crosses and stuff and set pieces, Chilwell could get to 17 without a goal or an assist. But I think with the Havertz and Werner stuff, I mean, imagine playing Havertz and Werner together as your only two Chelsea pieces and not playing Lukaku and Chilwell or Alonso, whoever, at all, and then playing a defensive stack of some other game, right? Like playing a Wolves defensive stack where you're playing Sa and Marcal and one of their center backs and doing, like, to me, that's completely flipping. You're still playing Chelsea, but you're playing Chelsea winning 2-0, not through the popular own players. But the only concern I have there is that you're playing two guys that are most likely not going to see 90 minutes.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Seriously, if the ownership of if Timo and Havertz are going to be more popular in Lukaku lineups and not really used as either one-offs or together, yeah, I mean, convinced me to have a few one-offs with Werner and Havertz. That makes so much sense because, like, if one of them goes off and Lukaku's in a lot of their lineups and he doesn't, well, those lineups are dead anyways. So you're going to get Timo or Havertz at even lower ownership as one-offs. Yeah, really, really good point.
Do you not put in Mendy though? Like, even if they get a clean sheet, like those 3 points are probably not, that the Chilwell people get. That's probably not ending you, but you're also getting the non-Lukaku goal through the win clean sheet for Mendy.
Well, that's what I said before. I said the defenders I'm not as concerned about, like defender goalkeeper combinations, whatever. But if you want to do ultra leverage and bust those too, then you don't play those, and you hope that Che Adams has a goal or something, and it kind of busts that. Because I think the more likely assist that a fullback is going to get is going to be to Lukaku and not to Havertz or to Werner anyway. So I'm not necessarily sure how correlated the fullbacks are to those two players that maybe you don't need to play a Chelsea fullback.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Yeah, all that makes sense. And yeah, Andrew, I agree with you. I think Mendy is like a good GPP play this week. Like, just much better clean sheet odds than everyone. And especially if you're not going to pay up for Lukaku. Great leverage there, or not even leverage. Just you could like almost mitigate Lukaku's goal because people won't. It's tough to afford both Lukaku and Mendy in your lineups. Yeah, I really like him for tournaments.
I think it makes sense in cash too.
No, that's what I was just going to say. It's like if I don't have Lukaku in my lineup, like I'm more likely to play Mendy than I am anything else, because worst case scenario, Lukaku scores, Chelsea wins and gets a clean sheet, and I get the goal's worth of points at goalkeeper instead of at forward.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Did we forget anything?
No, but Andrew, I was happy to see that you mentioned Junior Firpo in your article.
Your boy.
Just basically been terrible this season for fantasy. Like you said, his points look more like that of a center back. But I think you got to look that he's played Manchester United and Liverpool in 2 of the games. His game against Newcastle was pretty good. And just besides that, he was just extremely attacking when he played for Real Betis, came up with goals and assists. So I like that call for GPPs because people will go with Danny Rose in that range because he's been popular every week. And now that he took a couple corner kicks, so I like that shout.
Seemed like a good situation. Being playing for Leeds, anybody's can go off, I feel like. So that was that. All right. If anybody has any follow, sorry.
No, I've one more. But it seems like we're going too quickly.
Okay.
Are there any underdogs that you'd be looking to stack? Like, we haven't talked about Newcastle. We haven't talked about even kind of Watford. I mean, is Newcastle in play at all? I mean, it seems like we're like, the Wolves and Richie.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And like who's? It's not like Wolves are that great of a team either. So like St. Maximin sitting, I can't see him being much owned at all. I mean, he could be 5% owned on this, less than that on this slate.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I think Newcastle makes sense. Like you said, it's not like Wolves are like greatly superior. That game could be pretty even. It also depends on who scores first, But yeah, Norwich too. They seem okay because, they're a big underdog, but Burnley give up a lot of fantasy points. They like to play on the counter, even in games where they're favorite. Although I guess we don't have much evidence. They don't necessarily just have a lot of possession and create chances that way. So I think Norwich makes sense. Yeah. Newcastle. Yeah. Good point though, because the underdogs on this slate are not going to get ownership. And man, I saw it again with myself in the Champions League, but it just like reiterated the point that low ownership, a low owned guy getting a brace is still by far the easiest way to get a tournament, to win a tournament. I mean, it's unbelievable the leverage you get. So yeah, I think any of those underdogs, Newcastle, Norwich, yeah. We mentioned Watford a bit. Those guys are all cheap, 5K for the forwards in all those games. Yeah, good point.
So what's going to end up happening is the brace is going to come from James Ward-Prowse, right? Jack Harrison and Matthias Klick, right?
I feel like Harrison does score when you're just like, he's way too expensive. I would never play.
Well, obviously if he's not starting, but I mean,
well, yeah.
There's no way I play him at 9,200 start. No. I mean, like, come on. I mean,
nope.
You're right, though. That's what happens with Harrison. He'll get the start. I'll have him in 0 lineups probably at that price. And that's the time when we see him go off a few games all the time.
And that's when Ryan will be like, I told you, DraftKings knows sometimes. I will all but guarantee that at like 8:45 Eastern tomorrow morning, Matt Birnbach in the RotoWire Discord says that it's a Miguel Almiron day, just because he says it every time there's a Newcastle slate. But
has there ever been one?
We're expecting. What's that?
Has there ever been one?
There was one, I think.
One, okay.
I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, but that was it. Okay, if anybody has any follow-up questions for Jordan, you can find him on Twitter at Blenderhead. That's BlenderHD. If you'd like to ask Ryan a question, you can find him at Ryan Belongia. I am at RotoWire Andrew, also available in the RotoWire Discord that I was just referencing. Just go to rotowire.com/chat to get in there. If you are not a subscriber and would like to try us out for free for 10 days, let's go to rotowire.com/soccer trial. No credit card required, gets you access to the entire site. So, not just soccer, but everything that we have. It's also not just the Premier League, but also all the Big 5 European leagues, MLS, Liga MX, Champions League, Europa League, EFL Championship. It's all there. So if you're playing on DraftKings or FanDuel or Yahoo, we will have a cheat sheet for you and all the stats you need. Gentlemen, thank you very much for that, and good luck this weekend.
Thanks, guys.